In today's walkthrough, I'm going to show you how I executed this finished installation, a series of 90-degree bends with a 45-degree kick. Many people eyeball this, but when you are looking for a professional parallel finish across multiple rungs, you need a repeatable system. I'll be breaking down the exact steps I took from the initial layout to the final verification to get this rack looking clean and uniform. The layout. Before we even touch a vendor, we have to talk about the layout. To ensure this run is perfectly square with the structure, I've set up my laser level to establish our planned north, running parallel to the longest wall in the facility. This gives me a consistent reference point that matches the project drawings. Right here, I have my channel strut mounted exactly where the conduit rise will be taken, with my first piece centered directly on the laser line at 14 3/4 inch. So this bends is 45 degrees, so we know that there is a perfect 45-degree angle here. As for the spacing between conduits, these 5 conduits are 1 3/4 of an inch center to center, because these bags have the knockouts 1 3/4 of an inch center to center. So that is the reason we have 14 quarters, 13, 11 and a quarter, 9 and a half, 7 and 3/4. If you do the math, you will see that they are all 1 3/4 apart. So that's another important thing. So if you have the same space coming out from the panel or from the bags, or it can also be the end of the conduit, like for example, this conduit, just have to do a 90 and the kick and connect to this one. To ensure absolute precision, I am using Pythagorean Theorem. As you can see on the board, my rise is 14 3/4 of an inch, and my run, the horizontal run, is also 14 3/4 of an inch. We are starting with the largest conduit in this run. This is the rise, 14 3/4 of an inch, and the run, 14 3/4 of an inch. So when I enter this in the calculator, I will get this number, 217 and 56 inch. Same thing for the run, 217 and 56 inch. So I add those two sums together to get 435 and 12 inches. So I have to find the square root of this number by using the calculator and placing it under the radical sign to get this number, 20 and 85 inch. So now, doing that by hand for every single pipe is time consuming. For the remaining 4 conduits, I'm going to switch to a faster method. 1 in 414 rule. Since these are 45-degree kicks, I simply multiply the rise by the constant of 1 in 414. It is the same result, but it is the field speed way to get the measurements. So the remaining 4 conduits, the kick rise is 13 inches, 11 1/4, nine and a half, and 7 3/4. Multiplying the kick rise by 1 in 414, I got all the measurements needed for every conduit. So I'm going to start marking the conduits to start bending. With a 90-degree bends lying flat on a squared surface, I'm going to start marking the conduits. That will be the height of the rise, all of them at 45-degree bends. Now, all these 45-degree kicks have to be bent, aligning the bending mark with a notch on the bender. All these bends have to be done on the floor, stepping on the 90 part of the conduit and placing the level in the handle of the bender. So when you start pulling the bender to bend, the conduit will be straight and level. All these 5 conduits have to be bent 45 degree. This is the first 90 degree with 45 degree kick, and the rise is 14 3/4 of an inch to the center of the conduit. So it is okay to continue with the other 4. As I said, 45 degrees, 0.05, 0.06, it doesn't matter. The first 2 numbers should be 45, so that's what I have here. The height, 14 3/4 of an inch. And the knife is lying flat on the table, so it looks pretty good. And the bending mark, if you can see it, the tape measure is behind the 90 degree, because that's where the measurements are taken, from the back side of the 90. And if we come up here, we can see the bending mark. This blue pen I used, a very tiny mark, and in the background we can see the mark is around 20 7/8, because when we bend the conduit, it moves a little bit to that side, but Here is it. Okay, it came up exactly what we wanted. And one more thing, I said it before and I want to repeat it. This mark here was placed in the notch of the bender. This is the second 90 degree with 45 degree kick, and the height of the rise is 13 inches to the center of the conduit. I have officially verified the degree of bend and the kick rise for the first two conduits to ensure our 45 degree kick is dead on. For the final three, I'm skipping the height check and shifting focus to a critical detail, shrinkage. One thing we can't forget is the shrink, because the conduit is traveling on a diagonal. The hypotenuse, the overall length of the run, will shrink or pull back towards the bender. For a 45 degree bend, we are looking at a shrink of 3/8 of an inch for every inch of rise. So all these 5 90 degree bends that now have the kick on it were 24-inch high before doing the kick. All 5 conduits were 24 inches high. So this is the first kick. Now we have to measure to the top of the conduit, and we get 18.5 inch. So 14 3/4 of an inch times 3/8 equals 5, and this decimal number here, which can be rounded to 5.5 inch. So 18.5 plus 5.5 equals 24 inches. That is the original length of the 90 degree before bending the kicks. So it works. This is the second conduit, 13 inch to the center of the conduit. This is the rise. And as I said before, this was originally 24-inch high. So now we have 19 1/8 of an inch. So I'm just verifying this conduit, the second one. So we have over there 19 1/8 in the shrinkage amount. When we multiply 13 times 3/8, we will get 4 7/8. So when we add them together, we will get the 24 inch. And as I said before, the total length of the conduits before doing the kick, they all were 24 inch long. So it works perfectly. If you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.